good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started here. There's still a couple people trickling in the back door there, but we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, and thanks for joining us at this community information session for ACTI expansion. My name is Sean Eckenrode. I am the director of Adams County Technical Institute, and next to me is Dr. Sharon Perry.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking some time this evening to join us to have our first community-wide conversation regarding the expansion of the potential expansion of the Adams County Technical Institute. The purpose of this evening is to have a shared understanding of where we've been and where we are. We do understand that there's been a lot of conversations that have been happening, a lot of generalized interest in what this means for each of our school district and most importantly for our students. So this is our first attempt to pull our community together to share some information. Just so you're all aware, this evening this will be recorded and we will be able to disseminate this information to anybody who is not able to be here. And furthermore, we'll also have this on the Adams County Technical Institute website for your viewing as well. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Eckenrode.
Thank you, Dr. Perry. So I would just like to take a minute and let you all know how I came to be standing here. I was a teacher of electronics technology at the Franklin County Career and Technology Center for 20 years. I was also a student there when I was in high school. I took electronics technology and I got to take over from my teacher that taught me electronics. I ended up taking his job whenever he decided to move on. So around 2008 or so, I had a student in my program who was a Gettysburg High School student, not from Franklin County. And that was pretty unusual. So I got to talking to the young man on the first couple of days of school, you know, and asked him why he didn't attend his technical school in Adams County. And he said, well, we don't have one. And because I grew up in Franklin County and was a student there and taught there, I just thought everybody in Pennsylvania had a technical school in their county that they could go to. But this young man kind of opened my eyes, and I thought, it's a shame that the kids in Adams County don't have the opportunity to attend career and technical education programs. So that was a point in my career where I had been teaching for 15 years or so, and I was trying to decide what I wanted to do next. And so I ended up starting my administrative course at work to become an administrator of a school. And ever since then, my goal was to come to Adams County and do what I could to help bring a technical school to Adams County's students. And I interviewed for this job in 2016 when I was finishing up my coursework. Didn't get the job then, but then 2 years later in 2018 it became available and I interviewed and got the job. So I've been here since 2018, and ever since then I've been trying to educate folks in Adams County about career and technical education and what our students don't have compared to folks in other counties in Pennsylvania. So this work to me, like I said, started 15 years ago. And so I'm glad to be up on stage here delivering this message to all of you. And like Dr. Perry said, you know, there's been a lot of conversations in the community. Some of those conversations may be a little inaccurate. Some of those conversations that have gotten back to me have said that we're not being transparent, that we're not giving you all the information. And that falls directly on my shoulders. That's part of my job, is to get this information out there. So I apologize if I haven't been doing a good job at that. But please know that there was no malintent in not delivering information regularly to everybody. That's not what I would do. That's not who I am. That's not why I'm here. I'm here to promote this as much as I can. So I just felt like I needed to say that. Okay. Sure, Dr. Perry. Turn it back over to you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So a little bit about me. I was a teacher for 10 years, and the remaining 3.5 years So I was 7 years into my teaching career, where I was asked to teach English in a vocational technical school in Reynoldsville, Pennsylvania. And the school was Jefferson County, Du Bois area vocational technical school. So if you're at all familiar with the 80 corridor in the northern part of Pennsylvania, that's where I was asked to teach. My husband was born and raised in Du Bois. That's how I came to, be in the area. And they knew that I was looking for a job, and that was during a period of time where there was a lot of furloughing happening within our public schools. And so I said yes. I said, yes, I think that this would be an awesome idea. What is the vision? What's the key priority for students and being an English teacher in a vocational technical school? And they said, we need to raise PSSA scores. And I said, well, what are our current scores? And they said, none of our students are proficient. So from an academic perspective, I knew that our future was dependent upon our students having basic skills: reading, writing, arithmetic, the ability to speak, the ability to listen, to be able to synthesize, to be able to communicate, was critically important for their future academic and career success. So similarly to Mr. Eckenrode, it became a mission that I was going to meld the two. That my personal vision was to create lifelong learners with that pursuit of having a life plan upon graduation. And as a classroom teacher, everything that I did in that classroom was to create rigorous and relevant experiences for students so that they could be successful no matter what path in life they chose. And I loved every minute of it. So the Cliff Notes version of that story is working with students and working with their strengths and their interests in their technical field. I was able to sneak into their psyche a bit and show them how English skills were critically important to their future success. And they bought into it. And not only were they building for themselves a communication path, to be able to communicate their passion, to be able to communicate their worth and their skills. What I also found is that they had a flourishing sense of confidence in themselves as learners, which was the most important thing as a teacher that I wanted to accomplish. So they did pass the PSSA scores that year, and I attribute it to the connection between the academic and the technical experiences. And many of my students, shared with me that they had that aha moment. This is why school matters. It all comes together when you're developing skills that make sense. They appreciated being treated as an adult and as someone who was capable of learning skills and taking those skills and moving forward into their future with success. They were building a confidence for themselves that I myself did not have as a high school learner at all. And I was a teeny bit jealous about that fact that I didn't have access to career and technical education opportunities. At that point, I wanted to expand my impact into the leadership field, and I headed to the State College Area School District in Center County. And through a myriad of administrative positions there, my last 9 years I served as the Executive Director of Career and Technical Education. Having 8 programs that I oversaw, plus K-12 STEM and science at the secondary level, and also working with teachers to collaborate and integrate their skills within career and technical education programming. We moved from 33% proficient to 88% advanced upon my departure to come to New Oxford as their assistant superintendent in 2020. So my messaging here is that the academics are critically important, but when melded with the technical education, students thrive. And I think that the stories that I have heard throughout my tenure show evidence of that. And I think that our students who are in each of our school districts and their families can show evidence of that. And we've all heard those wonderful stories of our graduates and how they've been able to successfully move into their futures because of these opportunities at ACTI, as well as in each of our Adams County schools. So each of our Adams County schools has their own career and technical education programming as well. And one of the things that attracted me to this particular area was that commitment, because I know the power of strong academic education, along with a rigorous and relevant technical education, and the impact that that has on our local economy and within our community, and to build life-sustaining wages for our future. So I'm pleased to be here. I serve currently as the superintendent at the Conewaga Valley School District, and am also the superintendent of record for Adams County Technical Institute. And again, I'd like to welcome all of you this evening. And Mr. Eckenright has plenty of information to share with our community this evening. Thank you.
Okay, enough about us, right?
Great.
Okay, so if you saw any of my presentations about 2 years ago when I went around to all the school district board meetings and did the presentation, some of this information is going to sound very familiar to you, but there is some new content here, so bear with us. So ACTI is Adams County's Area Career and Technical School, or Center. That's kind of, I have that in quotes because that's what we're described as in PA school code. We are an Area Career and Technical School. We serve 5 of the 6 school districts in Adams County. ACTI has existed as it is right now since July 1 of 2020, and we were formerly Adams County Tech Prep. I'm sure some of you are familiar with Adams County Tech Prep. What we did in around 2020 was we took the Tech Prep programs and separated them from Gettysburg School District and made them truly a jointly owned and operated separate school entity known as ACTI. So we serve juniors and seniors in high school in those 5 school districts. We deliver about 825 hours of instruction, and we have about 260 students in our school this year. We have 8 approved programs to offer students, and you can see them listed there. I'm going to talk a little bit about approved programs in a minute. That has a significant meaning. But I wanted to talk a minute about the ACTI governing structure. According to school code and our articles of agreement, ACTI, like I said, is a separate school entity. It's jointly owned and operated by the 5 school districts that have agreed to participate in ACTI. In your school districts, of course, you have a 9-member school board that governs the school district. ACTI has what's called a joint board. And that joint board is every school board member of every participating district. So our joint board is 45 members. Now that's a little bit unwieldy to get 45 people together in a room and have conversations. So what school code provides for is what's called a joint operating committee, or a JOC. And that JOC, in our case, it's a little bit different depending on which tech school in Pennsylvania you're talking about, but in ACTI's case, our articles of agreement say the joint operating committee will be 1 representative from every participating district and 1 alternate from every participating district. And that joint operating committee has the authority to make most of the decisions of the day-to-day operations of ACTI. There are some things that have to go back to the joint board for approval, and those are delineated in school code and in our articles of agreement. There may come a time before too long where we need to have a joint board meeting. That would be discussed at the joint operating committee meeting, and if those members feel that we need to get all 45 people together and have a larger discussion about expansion or purchasing real estate or something like that, that can happen. We have never done that here in Adams County yet, but like I said, that opportunity may come up before too long as we move forward in this process. Is that good? Anything else in there? Okay. All right. Okay, moving on. Just a little bit about the benefits of career and technical education. You heard Dr. Perry and I talk a little bit about our background with career and technical education. If you Google the benefits of career and technical education, you're going to come up with all kinds of research and studies that talk about the benefits of career and technical education. I'm not going to get into a lot of those right here, but I did want to throw a few things out. Right now, career and technical education in Pennsylvania and across the nation is kind of enjoying a broad support from everybody. I think for a number of years, we have in our education system told everybody that they need a four-year degree. They need to graduate high school and go to a four-year college and get a four-year degree. I think we see with some of the student loan problems we have with some folks in our country and some of the underemployment of college graduates and college graduates who start but don't finish. I think as a nation, as a state, as a community, I think we're finally starting to realize that career and technical education is a good way to go. Not everybody needs a four-year degree, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second here. But as you can see, parents strongly approve or somewhat approve of expanding access to career and technical education programs. A lot of parents and students say they wish they could have gotten more real-world knowledge in high school, and that's what career and technical education is all about. Here's a survey. I'm not going to go over all of these, but some colleges got together and surveyed some of their applicants, potential students in their post-secondary programs, whether it was 2-year or 4-year or whatever the case. And in blue, you can see as career and technical education students. Get my laser pointer here. So blue is career and technical education students, and green is just all the students that were prospective students of those colleges and universities. And you can see that career and technical education students overall had a better experience in high school, and they felt like they were more prepared for post-secondary school. They felt like they were prepared for the workforce. There was only one category where they didn't rank their experience as high as regular students, and that is the ability to participate in extracurricular activities. And that's typically because career and technical education programs take up a pretty large portion of a student's school day. Like in our case, we have our students between 2 and 2.5 hours a day. So they don't have room to take a basket weaving elective at their high school. No offense to the basket weavers in the audience, but they just don't have time to do that because they're focusing on their career. We like to talk about the 1-2-7 ratio in career and technical education. And what that means is, if you examine just about every career field, this ratio kind of holds true. Not exactly, but it's pretty close in most career fields. So what that means is, if we use the medical field as an example, there's one person out of 10 in the medical field that requires an advanced degree, meaning a master's or a doctorate degree or some kind of postdoctorate degree. There are 2 people out of 10 that require a 4-year degree, and that would be your RNs, your BSNs. But then there are 7 people who don't need a 4-year degree. They might just need a couple years of technical training, maybe even just an industry certification, maybe a 9-month technical training course or something like that. The military is great at this. If any of you have been in the military is, they're experts at career and technical education. So the point here is not everybody needs a 4-year or advanced degree. In fact, most people don't need that to get started in their career. And there's nothing that says that one of those 7 people is a paramedic for 4 or 5 years, and the company they work for as a paramedic pays for their college education to get their RN degree. So there's a lot of ways to win in your career. It doesn't require going to 4-year college all the time. Now, of course, there are some programs that definitely do need a 4-year degree. You really can't be an engineer or a civil engineer unless you have a 4-year degree. So I'm not saying that no one should go to college, but not everybody needs to. So career and technical education is learning that works for our students, and it's learning that works for our industry, especially our local industry. And I'm not going to read all these to you, but you can see there some of the reasons that we, Dr. Perry and I, and your superintendents and everybody really support career and technical education. So I wanted to talk a little bit about career and technical education in Pennsylvania. I mentioned earlier that we have 8 approved programs at ACTI. So what does it mean to be an approved program? Well, an approved program, there are, career and technical education is talked about in PA School Code, it's talked about in a lot of different Pennsylvania Department of Education regulations. And the most prominent one of those is Chapter 339. This goes into detail about what it takes to have an approved program in Pennsylvania. And we get evaluated based on Chapter 339 every 5 years. In fact, our next evaluation is coming up next school year, so we're getting ready for that. We have to prove that we are meeting all of the Department of Education regulations to maintain approval of our programs to keep them in operation. So some of the things we have to do are we have to be integrated with local business and industry. And I have this one kind of listed pretty high up there because it's pretty significant. Every one of our programs has to have an occupational advisory committee. And that committee is required to meet twice a year, and they advise the teacher on what equipment they need, what the facility should look like, what safety should look like in that career field, the curriculum. They analyze our curriculum. They make sure that we are teaching what local business and industry need to have an entry-level employee. Most of what we do is preparing students for entry-level employment in the local workforce. So we have to be integrated with the local community. We have to have a minimum number of hours of training for our students, and that number is about 2 hours a day. I mentioned our programs are 2 to 2.5 hours, so our students get 825 hours of instruction rather than the minimum 720 for a 2-year program. These are not in any particular order, but we're subject to civil rights reviews and audits. We have to make sure that we are providing equal access to our programs for all students, regardless of disability. We have to give an end-of-course assessment. It's called a NOCTI test, N-O-C-T-I, and it's kind of like a keystone test for each of our programs. So diesel technology has a NOCTI test that is just about diesel technology. And it's both a written test and a performance test. The performance test is evaluated by local business and industry folks that do diesel technology. It's not evaluated by the teacher. The teacher spent 2 years with those kids. They're not allowed to evaluate them on their NOCTI test. So that's another way that we integrate with business and industry. Industry recognized credentials have to be a part of what we do. And when I say industry recognized credentials, I'm sure you've been in a restaurant where you see ServSafe certificates on the wall for the employees. Our culinary arts kids get ServSafe certified. Think computer networking, CompTIA A+ certification. That's the basic entry-level certification for IT jobs. Our students can earn that certification. Our diesel tech students get PennDOT Safety Inspector certification. So when you talk about industry certifications, we're required to integrate those into our programs, and that helps our students get entry-level jobs as well. We're required to have post-secondary connections. All of our programs either offer college and high school credit, some type of articulation agreement with local schools, so students who do want to go on to post-secondary school have some opportunity to get some of those credits before they even graduate high school. We have what's called a program of study. A number of years ago, the State Department of Education got together across the state and developed a program of study. And what they did was they got industry representatives from all the industries that all the tech schools can offer in Pennsylvania, and they said, come up with a list of tasks that we should be teaching for this industry. And it was basically a way to standardize what's taught at all the different tech schools in PA. So that forms the basis of our curriculum. I keep using diesel tech as an example here, but I'll stick with that. A task might be change the brakes on a diesel truck. That's a task that a student has to be able to do for our diesel tech program, and so the teacher builds the curriculum around that task. And some of these tasks, you know, the task list can be 150 tasks long, so that's how we build our curriculum. And then finally, we integrate career and technical student organizations such as Skills USA. And Skills USA is an organization, if you're familiar with the Technology Student Association or FBLA, things like that in the high school. Skills USA is the prominent career and technical education, CTSO, and students can compete against students from other tech schools in their program area. And we have a pretty robust Skills USA program, and our students do very well at local and state competition. In the last few years, we've even had students go to national competition. Our crime scene investigation team the last 2 years, the year before that was a student from Diesel Tech, went to national competition. So all of that, in order to be an approved program, you have to do all of that for the State Department of Education. So, what we get out of that is a little bit of a financial benefit. There's something called a CTE student subsidy, and that's about $1,200 to $1,500 per student in your programs that the state will just kind of give you. If you prove that you have X number of students in your programs, they'll give you that subsidy because career and technical education is a little more expensive than regular education. There's the Perkins 5 grant. That's a federal program, and ACTI gets some money from the federal government for that Perkins program. And then there are a number of different state equipment grants. If you look at ACTI's budget, you typically won't see equipment expenses in our budget. That's because we get grants to buy our equipment. It's in there, but it's not money that we ask for from the districts because we get the grant money for it. So that's career and technical education in Pennsylvania. Let's talk about career and technical education in Adams County. I like to say we're in a bit of a situation in Adams County because if you look at this map that I had up there a little while ago when I was talking about career and technical schools, where's that? Right here, that little crossroads is the intersection of Route 15 and Route 30 right out here. But there's no yellow dot there indicating ACTI. That's because this map was made about 10 or 15 years ago when ACTI didn't exist. So when we talk about schools like Jefferson, Du Bois, or Franklin County, or Dauphin County Technical School, those schools were all built in the late 60s and early 70s. And the educational leaders in Adams County at the time, I don't have a lot of information on this, but the educational leaders at that time, for whatever reason, did not build a technical school for the students in Adams County. And you might say, well, Adams County is small, it's rural. Adams County is not a tiny county. There's 67 counties in Pennsylvania. Adams County is number 31 population-wise out of all the 67 counties. So we're kind of middle of the road. So we're not a tiny county. We don't have a lot of business in the industry, but everybody needs a plumber, everybody needs someone to fix their air conditioning, everybody needs a carpenter, everybody needs someone to fix their car. We have a need for skilled people. So there's some discussion that could be had there about do we need it, do we not need it, but of course I think we do. So a couple of years ago, I pulled together a list of all of the career and technical schools in Pennsylvania, and I pulled together a number of different databases, so I had a lot of different columns of data to work with. And this chart here, I know you can't read it, but that's fine, you don't need to be able to read it. The yellow line in the middle of this chart is Adams County Technical Institute. And this chart is sorted by the number of students in grades 9 through 12 in the districts that participate in that tech school. So again, I mentioned earlier, we're number 31 out of 67 population-wise counties in Pennsylvania. Our high school population kind of reflects that. We're middle of the road. Down at the very bottom in green is Fulton County on the west side of Franklin County. That's the smallest tech school in the state. And just to give you some numbers, Adams County in grades 9 through 12 has about 3,700 students in grades 9 through 12. Fulton County has 544. So if I resort this list based on the number of programs available at the tech school for those students, Adams County drops all the way down there to the bottom of Fulton County. So just think about that. Fulton County has 544 students in grades 9 through 12, and they have 7 programs available for their students. Adams County has 3,700 students in grades 9 through 12, and we have 8 programs available for our students. And then I sorted the list based on percentage of high school students enrolled in the tech school, and of course we're close to the bottom on that list as well because we only have 8 programs. And then I looked at the dollar figures a little bit and said, I sorted the list based on all the participating districts' combined budgeted expenditures. And again, we fall down the middle of the road, which kind of makes sense. But then if we sort that by what percentage of budgeted expenditures they spend on their tech school. Again, it's a function of the fact that we only have 8 programs available, but our school districts don't spend a lot of money on the technical school. And of course, if we had more programs, that would come back to about where it should be. So, another thing I did was I kind of went to Google Maps and I zoomed in and got a footprint of the 3 technical schools that surround Adams County. So to the west of us is Franklin County Career and Technology Center, to the north of us is Cumberland Perry, and to our east is York County School of Technology. And I put some information up there. Franklin County is a 3-year program. We're only a 2-year program. Franklin County is a 3-year program. They have 23 programs, over 1,000 students in those programs. And I just heard today that they're adding 3 more programs at the semester break in January. So they're going to be up around 26 or 27 programs. Cumberland Perry to the north of us is a 3+ year program. They typically have grades 10 through 12, but they also take some 9th graders, and you can see the numbers there for them. Same thing with York County, you can see the numbers there for them. They're a 4-year program, and they are a fully comprehensive school, which means they have all of their academics at their tech school as well. And they're a 4-year program. So basically, if an 8th grader wants to go to York County School of Technology, they would almost never step foot in their high school with all their classmates that they went to school with for 8 years. So Adams County, this is our little building over here. Actually, it's not our building, it's Gettysburg School District's building. But our little building over here, you can see the information there. I know I only have 7 programs there, but we now have 8 programs. And again, you might say, well, Adams County is smaller than York County and Cumberland Perry and all that. And you're right. And you might say, well, we don't have a business and industry. But think about a graduate from Adams County. The Adams Economic Alliance has some data that says that 2/3 of the people that live in Adams County work outside of Adams County. And if you think about that, a student that graduates from Adams County maybe wants to go get a job as a robotics technician at a high-tech factory in York County. How are they going to compete against a student from York County School of Technology, where that student has had 4 years of training in robotics technology? Our students are going to get the jobs sweeping floors, and they're not going to get the high-tech jobs that pay good money, that brings that money back to Adams County. So, I love these discussions, but I think we got to think about what are we preparing our students for? What kind of jobs are they going to be able to get? And then the other thing I'll point out on this before I move on is, again, these 3 counties are bigger than Adams County, but Franklin County is only 1.5 times the size of Adams County. Franklin County has about 160,000 people. Adams County has about 106 or 7,000 people. So it's about 1.5 times bigger. So again, 1.5 is an easy number to work with. So Franklin County, even though it's only 1.5 times bigger than Adams County, it has 3 times as many programs available, maybe 4, and it has 4 times as many students in those programs. And if anybody would like to go see Franklin County Career Technology Center, I would love to take you over there. If you walk through that school and realize that that county is only 1.5 times bigger than Adams County, and you look at that school and then you look at our school, it's like, holy cow, we're not doing what we should do for our kids. Okay, so how good are the programs that we do have? Well, I have some numbers up here. I'm not going to read all these, but our programs are pretty dang good. If you compare us to the other tech schools, what we do at ACTI is good. Our students do well on their ACTI tests. Our students do well at competitions. Our students earn college credits. Our students get industry certifications. If you look at our applications for this school year, last year we had 194 applications for only 147 seats. We could only take 147 new kids into our school. So we turned away about 24% of the students who applied to ACTI. And that's not uncommon. If you look at schools across the state, every technical school in Pennsylvania is turning away between 25 and 50% of the kids who apply. And here's some information. I get some questions sometimes, what do graduates do? In yellow there, you can see that about half our graduates go directly to employment, and about half of our graduates go into post-secondary school. Discipline at ACTI is almost non-existent, which I'm very thankful for. Our students want to be here, they're engaged, they work, they study. I don't have hardly anything to worry about as far as discipline goes. So great job to our students, but we feel that we can do a little bit better. Did you want to go with this? Okay. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Perry to talk about ACTI guiding principles. A number of years ago, we started talking about a feasibility study for ACTI growth, and one of the first things we did was come up with some guiding principles. So I'm going to let Dr. Perry talk about it.
So as Mr. Eckenrode mentioned, the feasibility study is being conducted by Crabtree Rohrbaugh and Associates. And one of the first activities is to create a committee to engage in conversation about the needs of the educational program, as well as the facilities that are needed to support that program. So part of the first assessment is identifying whether what we have is suitable to meet the needs within our community. And then secondly, you look at whether or not the facility helps to support that. So a lot of data are pulled together, that's brought together with a steering committee that was led by the Joint Operating Committee. And there was representation from each of the 5 school districts, as well as occupational advisory committee members and local advisory committee members, as well as members from our industry who may not have been serving on the committee. We also partnered with Adams Economic Alliance, and they've shared their wisdom and their data with us as well as we begin this process. So with this, the guiding principles, there are 3 different areas that we walk through. The first being operationally, and these are the things that become our North Star as we begin having conversations. And so first and foremost, to be aligned with the Articles of Agreement, and also to be cost efficient to operate. So that became one of the top operational guiding principles, is the cost efficiency. If we were to expand, we acknowledge and we recognize it would require an investment to do so. And if we did do that, it would have to be in a cost-effective way that each of our districts could support moving forward while we're maintaining the health and the vitality of our schools that we currently have and that we need to be considered. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. The second operational principle was to assure equitable opportunities for all participating school districts. And so, we work together as an educational leadership team, and we have a percentage basis based upon the number of students that we have in each of our high schools. And then if we don't use our seats, for example, with New Oxford being the largest, those seats are offered to our other partner schools. So it increases the accessibility and the availability of the program as a very scarce and limited resource within our community. Also, we want to maintain a consistent flow of capital to sustain the program's facilities, grounds, and operations. And we planned that that would be handled through, strategic plans, comprehensive plans, and other short and long-range plan opportunities to ensure that our community, that we're being as fiscally responsible and responsible for all of the resources that we would attain. We would reflect the current county and regional workforce needs and the career interests of the students. And that's a key area. Our industry partners, we know what those key areas are, that they're really interested in having our students become a part of the pipeline and working and collaborating with us to provide opportunities for our students in the form of job shadows, internships, apprenticeships, etc. All in that desire to have future employees that stay local. We want to focus on being designed to allow for future expansion. That was another area that in our study it was acknowledged that we're not currently meeting the needs and the desires not only of our students but also of our industry. Allow for the flexibility to change program offerings commensurate with work needs and student career interests. And this is key in order for us to stay adaptable and nimble in today's changing economic and career climate. For example, the onset of AI, I think, is moving and shaking a lot of the careers that currently exist. And as educational leaders, we just had a conversation today about what those impacts might be on our educational programming. Reflect the values of participating school districts and the ongoing investment made by taxpayers, business and industry, community organization, and donors. So educationally, we said that we must design secondary educational programs to obtain the Pennsylvania Department of Education approved program status to access state and federal funding that reduces our overall operating costs. We design curriculum for the acquisition of workforce skills to obtain industry-recognized and professional certifications. And one thing of note is these programs and these certifications are not watered down because the students are younger. It's very important for our community to know and understand, and our industry understands, that these are adult training programs that we're offering to high school students. So we wanted to articulate educational programs with those offered in post-secondary institutions through direct partnerships, articulation agreements, college and high school agreements, and early into college programs. We want to offer programs that meet the regional workforce needs and career interests of secondary students. Design facilities to accommodate training, retraining, upskilling adult learners to meet regional workforce needs. And finally, educationally, to focus on programs that are cost prohibitive for a single district to operate, or may not be able to be filled by a single district if they did offer it. Civically, the Adams County Career and Technical Institute must form partnerships with county community organizations such as chambers of commerce, economic development corporations, and other organizations with an interest in supporting our local business and economy. form partnerships with local businesses to ensure our safety instruction, our facility equipment and supplies and curriculum meet the regional workforce needs. Ensure that space is provided as available for civic, religious, athletic, artistic leisure, and other activities to support our municipalities, family, children, and individuals in our community. Convey pride in our county and our citizens, their futures, our community, and what makes Adams County unique. So as part of the educational programming portion of the feasibility study, we identified the 8 current programs in the general classrooms that currently exist. And through a series of pathway conversations in all of these different areas, computer science, technology, construction trades, agricultural, health, hospitality, human services, advanced manufacturing, automotive, and general spaces, 7 new programs that would double the offerings to Adams County youth would include allied health, HVAC, advanced manufacturing, ag mechanics, automotive technology, welding, and auto collision repair. So from all of the data that we were able to pull together, this directly aligned with the high priority occupations within our area in the York-Adams region. And also, we have received this feedback from industry partners within our community through our occupational advisory committees as well as our local advisory committees. So program allocation of spaces for labs, classroom each at 850 square foot, storage recommended percentage, locker room and restroom varies by program, and the building capacity currently 316 times 2. We're looking at a potential of 78,950 square feet to meet the needs of the educational program. So that's the first step. How much additional square footage, if this educational program were to come to life, if we were actually accomplishing what the data is pointing us towards accomplishing, what would that be? And then when we consider our current space at being 20,000 square feet, again, we can see that there's a critical delta that we're attempting to fill those gaps through each of our individual school districts. And we're doing the very best that we can there and here at ACTI. Nevertheless, the truth remains. Students are being turned away from this educational program that definitely can help us from an economic development perspective and as well as keeping our students here in Adams County. So the support area programs, we worked through this, and it was the faculty areas, the administration areas, the nurse areas, the school counseling guidance support areas, as well as with an expanded program comes expanded support such as maintenance and custodial staff. And that square footage was estimated to be 9,820 square feet, netting building square footage of 88,770 square feet with a grossing factor of 60%. So all in, we were looking at 142,032 square feet. And that's what the support service is, in addition to the educational program, recognizing that our current space is 20,000 square feet. So as we progressed through the feasibility study, and this was a multi-year project, just as it is in many districts, it takes some time to work through what the feasibility of a future project might look like. There were 3 options that were presented. The first being a new facility. Option 2 was new facility with phased construction over a 10 to 12 year time frame. And option 3 was a new facility for what we call the dirty labs and maintain the existing ACTI for current labs. And so that would be 2 different sites that would be serving Adams County. And the options not developed was to renovate the existing facility. And the reason for that is that that facility was owned and operated by the Gettysburg Area School District, and Adams County Technical Institute was becoming its own school and was no longer a part of the Gettysburg Area School District. So, of note, for the new construction cost estimate option, the preliminary cost doesn't represent any of the estimates for the design solution. It's just a starting point to understand the ballpark of numbers. And the project budget cannot be finalized, obviously, until there's land that's pursued, that we understand what the conditions of that land might be, and that they need to be analyzed, and then that floor plan on that land needs to be conceptualized. So site acquisition, it doesn't include that. It doesn't include the construction costs. It doesn't include any utility connections or tap-in fees that may be required, the municipal county agency requirements due to the existing site conditions, project soft costs. Cost estimate is based on the square footage of the educational program only, so not the operational cost necessarily. Costs could increase due to the existing site restraints that could increase overall building square footage. And so the 2023 cost estimate was $48.5 million, at the lowest 56.3. So again, for clarity's sake, ballpark figure only, we know it was going to be more. So then, for that cost estimate for general construction, I'm not going to read everything here, but it includes HVAC, plumbing, fire protection, escalation, contingency funds, construction soft costs and project soft costs. So we were looking at the low end, 333,285, with a high cost range of 63,690,654. So that was 2 years ago, and we know that costs rise, for sure. We know that coming from just being a community member and in each of our school districts, we have seen that. So how are we moving forward today? So August 28th, 2025, we had a business manager meeting with the superintendents and Mr. Sean McEnroe.
Those were 2025.
Sorry, there were the 2023 numbers, and then this is the updated 63,690,654 2025 numbers. So let me go back then so that we can see the, I'm sorry, I misspoke. I apologize. Yes.
Go back one. There you go. That's very low.
There it is, 56.3 at the high end to 63. So that was the delta over the course of 2 years. So knowing that we had that jump up in number going through the feasibility, as superintendents and business managers, we came together and we met to discuss the affordability of the project, and we said we need a target number. What would that target number be when we're considering all of the numbers that the previous number did not include that I just read off? So we targeted $75 million as that point that we began to have conversations as a superintendent team with business managers. And each district short and long-range capital improvement plans were considered as part of that activity. And based upon the context, the superintendents and business managers determined that their affordability range to be anywhere between 35 to 55 million. So obviously a 20 million delta is a lot, and we recognize that. And however, just from the ranges of the delta, we knew that that wasn't something that we could ask the school districts to afford at $35 million if other districts could afford 55. So naturally, we noticed that we utilize that number of 35 million is our agreed to if we're going to work out through this activity. We would use 35 million, and so therefore there was the overall 40 million delta in order for us to accomplish our goal. And a general discussion was held about options for a smaller project, looking at perhaps some of the other options again, or how to make up the difference through grants and state and or federal funding requests. And that number is overwhelming, and it's very easy for all of us here and in the community to say, well, we just can't afford it. However, the following day, I found that there was an $85 million grant that a school wrote for and utilized to build a school. And so my message to our community is yes, that is a massive delta and that is a massive list, but I do believe that there is hope. And if there is not hope, then we have our answer. If the community doesn't support the vision for the expansion of ACTI, then we also know our answer. But we get to choose that together and decide that as a community about how we want to move forward. But I don't want us to be afraid of that large delta, because there is hope. So then we began to have some other conversations with financial personnel. So PFM, Financial Advisors, is a local financial advisor who we met with. And, we said, hey, talk to us a little bit about what the monies might look like. And we were able to meet with them to project that, for this financing of the project, we're looking at a pro rata share per 10 million. So based upon the percentages that I mentioned previously, Bermudian Springs is at 12.84, Conewago Valley is 26.7, Fairfield is 9.7, Gettysburg is 35.56 and Littlestown is 15.11. So what we're looking at it for 20 years is $9,995,000. And then we looked at the proposed debt service and what that might look like within the years over the course of the 20 years. So we began taking a look at this then and saying, okay, based upon what's happening in each of our school districts with our own capital improvement plans and our short and long range planning, how would we be able to accommodate that? So we can identify the estimated bond proceeds that would be necessary in order for us to accomplish that. And then we would look at the breakdown of our member districts. For each of the districts, the estimated bond proceeds would be 1.3 for Bermudian, 2.7 for Conewago, 978,511, Gettysburg 3.6, Littlestown 1.5 million for 20 years, based upon our estimated pro rata share. So then, as Mr. Eckenrode and I took all of those data from the superintendent and the business managers meeting, we looked at the 25-26 ACTI operating budget contribution for each of the 5 school districts. So their current budget is $330,606, and these are the current contributions of each of our school districts. So if, for example, we had a $70 million bond, each of those school districts, that's what the contribution would look like for each school district. And then because we're doubling programs, the contributions would be, the total contributions would be listed at the bottom. So Bermudian Springs would be 1 million, Conewago Valley 1.6.